America, and especially American women, seem to have this fascination with the British gentleman. For as long as characters like James Bond, Hugh Grant, and more lately Tom Hiddleston have graced the big screen, American men have been scratching their heads as to figure out why these men are so suave and charming. As a British man living in the US, I've made some interesting observations about why Americans love the British gentleman. And the good news is, you don't need the accent to pull these off. So here are 5 charming habits of the British gentleman that you can steal for yourself. The first charming habit of the British gentleman is his chivalry. Now, chivalry is actually a concept that originated in medieval Europe, and particularly during the Middle Ages. It was a code of conduct that was followed by knights that emphasized qualities such as courage, honor, bravery, and gallantry. These days, the concept of chivalry has expanded far beyond a military context, and it's come to be associated with a broader code of conduct, especially applying to interactions between men and women. If you want to be truly chivalrous, I suggest you forget about doing things with an ulterior motive with women and go about being as kind as you can to strangers regardless of who they are. So here are my top suggestions for being chivalrous that have nothing to do with dating. Next time you're in the parking lot of a supermarket and you see that an elderly person is done loading up their car, go up to them and offer to take their cart back for them. This is something I always do when I see somebody in need, and they are always very grateful for the small favor. If you live in a city where you ride the bus or the subway, offer your seat to somebody who looks like they need it. This could be an elderly person, or it could be a woman in high heels. And finally, always look behind you and in front of you as you go through a door to see if you can open it for anyone. And this applies to anyone, either a man, a woman, old or young. Manners are very important in British society, and this is an easy trait that you can incorporate into your own life. Be quick to say please and thank you when anybody helps you out, even in the slightest way. This could be the barista giving you back your change, or the store associate handing you your receipt. If you're in the US, you can call strangers ma'am or sir as a way of showing respect. And make sure to follow good table manners when you're eating with others. This could be a whole other video, but the most important ones are: don't chew or talk with your mouth full, don't make loud slurping or sucking noises while you're eating, and don't reach across people's plates when you need something from the table. Instead, ask them to pass it to you. Finally, be kind with your tone of voice when you're speaking to strangers, whether they are a store worker, a waiter, an Uber driver, etc. I was recently in the T-Mobile store, and there was an elderly woman in this store who needed some help from the associate, and I couldn't believe how rudely she was talking to the guy just with her tone of voice. I thought it was absolutely shocking. I'm sure if you're watching this video you would never do something like that, but it's important to remember that kindness and manners also have a lot to do with how you say things and the way that you talk to people, as well as just the actions and words like please and thank you. On the whole, I have found that American people are very polite, so I don't think there's much of a difference between British and American culture here, but there is a big difference between British and American tendencies with this next trait. One big difference between Americans and British people is that British people are generally a lot less self-assured. This subtle self-doubt and nervousness can actually be very charming and disarming. So don't think that you need to present as 100% confident all the time. It's okay to show your vulnerabilities and your emotions. Think about it, Hugh Grant's characters would be far less charming if it weren't for his awkward fumbling. Somehow it makes what he is saying seem more authentic and romantic. And there's another important element to this character trait of self-deprecation. British people generally dislike being the center of attention, and their discomfort with this can be quite charming. So in a culture such as America, where people like to play things up, playing things down can actually be a more appealing trait. For example, if somebody compliments a Brit, he is likely to seem slightly embarrassed and just say thank you. He would never use the compliment as a way to launch into an elaborate story about his achievements. And this humility can be quite a refreshing change in American society, where we often reward people who hog the attention of the room and boast about their successes. British people also generally dislike talking about themselves, so they will try and turn the conversation back onto the other person. So you can use this yourself by taking a greater interest in the person that you're talking with, their story, their interests, and they'll feel special and socially desired. Remember, if you want to be interesting, be interested. As much as tea, the Queen, and bad teeth, British people are known by Americans for their humour. If you want to deliver the charming wit of the British humour, you'll need to make your humour more subtle, slightly darker, and more self-deprecating. Because the British sense of humour often relies on observations, this can be very useful in social situations. For example, you can start a conversation with a stranger by making a funny or sarcastic comment about something that's happening around you. Especially if you want to turn a negative situation into a humorous one, you can use a joke. There's certainly a pessimistic and more dark flavour to British humour, which can be a refreshing change from American optimism. If you want to understand the British sense of humour a little bit more, I would suggest watching the original version of The Office with Ricky Gervais. I'm Alan Partridge is one of my favourites, or The IT Crowd. However, I have shown all of these shows to my American girlfriend and she never laughed once. But I will say this, the British sense of humour is a bit more thick-skinned and a bit more offensive generally than the American sense of humour. So if you're thinking of making a joke that's a little bit controversial, then it might not always be the most appropriate thing to say in a given social situation, especially in America. My final trait of the British gentleman that I want to share with you is his non-reactiveness. British people are generally unimpressed by most things and they rarely have strong reactions or get flustered easily. Take a look, for example, at James Bond. He is unflinching even in life or death situations. On the other hand, I have noticed that Americans are more likely to lose their temper or get hot-headed over relatively small inconveniences. So being non-reactive and more stoic comes across as a more respectable trait. This is one that you can practice yourself next time you're under pressure. Unfortunately, one thing that Americans can't steal from the British is the accent. As a Brit in America, I have heard so many terrible impersonations of the British accents. I've even heard men doing pretend British accents as a way to try and impress women or turn them on. Guys, I believe I speak for the women of the USA when I say this is very cringe and awkward, so don't do this. You don't need to pretend to be somebody else to be charming. And you can have all these charming traits of manners, chivalry, and humour. There's no need for gimmicks, and putting on a voice only comes across as less confident, and less comfortable in your own skin, which is of course a very unattractive trait. So I hope this video has helped you understand a bit more about the mysterious appeal of the British gentleman. I hope you will find these 5 tips easy to implement in your own life, and I hope you have a lot of success with them. To learn more about the British gentleman, please check out this video here where I break down some of the differences between the British gentleman and the Southern gentleman. And until next time, I look forward to hearing from you guys and catching up with you all in the comments.